Good morning. In this class, I am going to explain the types of debentures. What is a debenture and what are the types of debentures? In the last class, I have explained the last class I have explained what is a preference share, and what are the types of preference shares, and debenture. What is a debenture? In this class, I am going to explain what is a debenture and different types of debentures. After completion of this class, the student will be able to understand. After completion of this class, the student is able to understand what is a debenture and what are the types of debentures. And this is the last video class in this chapter. This is the last topic. This is the last topic and the last video class in this chapter. In the last classes, from the beginning, that is this chapter, I have clearly explained the capital structure of a joint stock company, the capital structure of a joint stock company, and various types of shares. What is a share? What are the futures of shares? What is a share and what are the futures of shares, and different types of shares and different types of shares. In that, I have explained you deferred share, equity share, and preference share. And in the last class, the last video lesson, the last class, we learned what is a preference share and the types of preference shares and the types of preference shares. Here in this class, that is the continuation of the previous classes, that is the chapter name is capital structure of a joint stock company. So in generally a company needs two kinds of capital, fixed capital as well as working capital. So to arrange these fixed and working capital, the company procures three kinds of financial resources: long term financial resources, medium term financial resources, short term financial resources. Long term financial resources, medium term financial resources, and short term financial resources. So, to procure, to arrange the long term financial resources, the company issues shares. The shares are the way best source to arrange the long term financial needs of a joint stock company. So, the long term capital or the long term financial resources are required for a joint stock company to purchase a building or a machinery, that is, to purchase fixed assets. And medium term capital or medium term financial resources and short term financial resources for working capital. So medium term financial resources helps in restructuring, renovating or modernizing the existing machinery or building, etc. And the short term financial resources or short term capital is to meet day to day business activities. To meet day to day business activities. So, in order to procure this long term, medium term, and short term financial resources, to arrange these three kinds of financial resources, the company or the joint stock company issue shares, debentures, and the company accepts public deposits by paying higher rate of interest. Here the shares are the best source to arrange the long term financial needs of a joint stock company. In that I have clearly explained you the shares are three types. One is deferred shares, and number two equity shares, and number three preference shares. So here the deferred shares are the founders shares. These shares are held with the promoters or founders of a joint stock company. And equity shares. The equity shares are the general shares or ordinary shares issued to the common public, the people who were interested to invest the amount in a joint stock company. They can invest by purchasing. They can invest by purchasing a equity or a preference share depending upon their willing or interest or requirement. So here there is some differences between an equity share and a preference share. The people, depending upon their requirements or depending upon their interest, they may invest either by purchasing a equity share or a preference share. Here the equity shares are called as ordinary shares, and equity shareholders have a right to vote, that is one share one vote and the equity shareholders will get higher rate of dividend. Means the dividend on a equity share is not fixed. The dividend on a equity share is not fixed. It depends on the profit, net profit of the business. Generally, the successful business may get higher profits or huge profits. So, the equity shareholders get more amount of dividend on their investments on their investments. But here the rate of dividend or the amount of dividend is not fixed to the equity shareholders. And there is another kind of share which is called as a preference share. The name itself is saying is a preference. It is nothing but a priority. So these shareholders will be given priority over than equity shareholders. Over than equity shareholders. Here the rate of dividend is fixed. The rate of dividend is fixed to the preference shareholders. The rate of or the amount of dividend is fixed to the preference shareholders. If the company may get a huge profits or more profits, or if the company is in a normal position, if the company is getting normal profit, or in some cases, in some situation, the company may be in a loss position, but the preference shareholder will get the same rate or the same amount of dividend. There is no change in the rate of dividend or in the amount of dividend. And the preference shareholder will enjoy the preference shareholder will enjoy the preference over the equity shareholders in distributing the dividend or in the repayment of the capital in case of winding up of a company. In a joint stock company, at the end of year, the total profits will be calculated. In that, the dividend, the preference will be given to the, in distributing the dividend, the preference will be given to the preference shareholders. Then after, the remaining amount will be declared as a dividend for that other shareholders in that financial year. In some situations, in some cases, or in some past years, that is financial years. So if the company got higher profit, huge profit, so comparatively there is a chance of getting more dividend to the equity shareholders over than the preference shareholders, because the preference shareholders dividend is fixed and the equity shareholders dividend is depends on the profits of the company. So generally in a huge profits movement of a giant stock company. So compared to preference shareholder, an equity shareholder may get higher rate of dividend. And but in case of priority in distributing the dividend, out of the total profits, the first priority will be given to the preference shareholder. Then, after, the remaining amount will be declared as a dividend in that financial year to the remaining equity or deferred shareholders. While paying the share capital back in case of a winding up of a company, the same preference is given to the preference shareholder. The first repayment made back to the preference shareholder out of the residual assets of the company. Out of the residual assets of the company. Then equity shareholders, then deferred shareholders. Here one difference between equity and preference shareholders is equity shareholders have a right to vote but a preference shareholders doesn't have any vote to right. And there are number of kinds in a preference shares. It means there are so many types of preference shares. There are so many types of preference shares. So that is cumulative preference share, non-cumulative preference share, participating preference share, non-participating preference share, redeemable preference share, irredeemable preference share. So cumulative preference share, cumulative preference share. So here the cumulative means every year dividend is accumulated to the cumulative preference shareholders. If any year the company is in a loss position, the company is not having a position to pay the dividend, company is not having in a position to pay the dividend, so that year dividend will be accumulated to the next coming financial year. That year dividend is accumulated to the next financial year. The dividend is paid whether the company earns profit or not. The dividend is paid whether the company's profit or not. And here the unpaid dividends on these shares go on accumulating. So, and second one is non-cumulative preference shares. I have very clearly explained all these types of preference shares in the last video or last class, and now I am giving you a brief idea. It makes a proper connection between the last class and today's class. So non-cumulative preference shares. So in the non-cumulative preference, shareholders will get dividend only when the company earns profit. When the company earns profit. The non-cumulative preference shareholders will get only dividend when the company earns profit. In this type of preference shares, the unpaid dividends do not accumulate. The unpaid dividends do not accumulate. These shares do not have any claim over unpaid dividends of previous years. In the cumulative preference shares, the accumulated dividend will be paid. The non-cumulative preference shares, there is no concept of accumulation. The company earns profits only the dividend is paid. Otherwise, there is no dividend to this non-cumulative preference shareholders. And then participating preference shares. Participating preference shares. So here the participating preference shareholders will get a fixed rate of dividend. The participating preference shareholders will get a fixed rate of interest. The participating preference shareholders will get a fixed rate of interest. Fixed rate of dividend, not interest, fixed rate of dividend. In addition to this, so if the company gets any surplus profit, if the company gets any excess profit or surplus profit, if the company gets any excess profit or surplus profit, these shareholders have a chance to get surplus dividend. Then non-participating preference shares. So in the case of non-participating preference shares, they don't have any special right in surplus profits of a company. They don't have any special rights in the surplus profits of a company, like a participating preference shares. And then next one, redeemable preference shares. Generally, once the share capital is invested in the company, the capital or the share amount won't be paid back to the shareholders throughout the lifetime of the company. But in the case of redeemable preference shares, we have seen in the last class, that is, as per section 80 of the Indian Companies Act permits a public limited company to issue this kind of preference shares, which can be returned after a specified period. Which can be returned after a specific period. Okay. So as per Act 80, the redeemable preference shareholders will get the capital back after a specific period. And in the case of irredeemable preference shareholders, these irredeemable preference shareholders won't get money back, won't get money back. So this is about the last class, or in this chapter discussion, in this chapter discussion, that is shares, different types of shares, and preference share. In that one, different types of preference shares, different types of preference shares. And in this today's class, we are going to see another kind of financial resource, getting financial, arranging the financial source of a giant stock company is debentures, is debentures. So there is a lot of difference between share and debenture. There is a lot of difference between share and debenture. A share is differ from debenture. A share is a share in the share capital of a company. A share is a share in the share capital of a company, right? So debenture is a kind of loan. It is a kind of loan from the public, from the public. A company may finance part of its capital needs by raising loans in the form of debentures. So we have remembered that the company to procure medium term loans, to arrange the medium term financial sources, a company may issue debentures to the general public like shares. A company may finance part of its capital needs by raising loans in the form of debentures. A company may finance a part of its capital needs by raising loans in the form of debentures. Every trading company has implied powers to borrow money from the purpose of its business. Every trading organization, every trading organization have powers to borrow money for the purpose of its business. A non-trading company can be borrowed only when it is specially empowered by its memorandum of association. A non-trading company can borrow only when it is specially empowered by its memorandum of association. If a company for its expansion and development requires huge funds for a long period, it issues debentures to the public. Okay, this point we have to remember. This is the important point. This point we have to remember is, if a company for its expansion, already company has started and the company is doing its business, the company is doing its business, for the expansion or development, for the expansion or development requires or needs huge amount, huge capital, or huge, we say it has a fund, we can say it has a huge fund for a long period, for a long period. So it issues debentures to the public. It issues debentures to the public. Okay, it issues debenture. A debenture is a kind of loan. A debenture is a kind of loan. The people who are interesting to invest the money in the form of a debenture, they can purchase a debenture. They can purchase a debenture. It is not like a share. It is not like a share. A debenture is the acknowledgement of the following made by the company from public. A debenture is the acknowledgement of the borrowing made by the company from public. Here, in the case of shares, simply we are saying it has a capital. It is a piece of capital. It is a unit of capital which has a definite face value. A share is a piece of capital equal part a total authorized capital of the company is divided into equal parts and each part is called as a share. So we are simply saying it as a share capital. Share capital. Here in case of debenture, it is the acknowledgement of the borrowings made by the company from public. It is a kind of loan. It is a kind of loan from the general public by paying a rate of interest and repayable at a certain period, specifying the repayable at a certain period of time, given under the common seal of the company. Given under the common seal of the company. It contains various terms regarding the loans such as rate of interest, period of the loan, rights of debenture holders. Okay, it contains, okay, it is given, it is a kind of borrowing made by the company from the general public and given under the common seal of the company, contains various terms regarding the loan such as rate of interest. What is the rate of interest the company would pay? The period of the loan, the term of the loan, and the rights of debenture holders. Like shareholders, these people are called as debenture holders. Debentures are issued for a fixed period and are repayable after expiry of the period. This is a kind of method or one of the method of raising money in the form of loans. Okay, so here it is given under the common seal of the company. It contains total terms and conditions, that is the rate of interest and period of loan and the rights of debenture holders, etc. This is a one kind of raising money in the form of loans. This is a method of raising money in the form of loans. So there are so many kinds of debentures are there. Like so many kinds of preference shares. Like here also types of debentures are there. Okay, so the debenture holders are called as creditors of the company. Here we have to observe one point is the debenture holders are called as the creditors of the company. The debenture holders are called as the creditors of the company. A debenture is the security issued or allotted to investors who become creditors of the company. The debenture holders are called as the creditors. In case of shares, the shareholders are the owners of the company. Here, the debenture holders are called as the creditors of the company. There is a lot difference between the shares and debenture. A debenture is the security issued or allotted to investors. A debenture is the security issued or allotted to investors who become creditors of the company. The term debenture is derived from the Latin word debere, which means to owe a debt. The term debenture is derived from the Latin word bear, which means to owe a debt. A debenture may be defined as a document issued by the company as an evidence of its debt. A debenture may be defined as a document. A debenture may be defined as a document. A debenture may be defined as a document issued by the company as an evidence of its debt. Palmer defines a debenture as any instrument under seal evidence a deed, the essence of being admission of indebtedness. So here the shareholders will get a share certificate, like debenture holders will get a debenture certificate. Debenture certificate. It is an evidence of its debt. It is an evidence of it is issued by the company as an evidence of its debt. The debenture holders are called as the creditors of the company. The debenture holders are called as the creditors of the company. And there are so many kinds of debentures are there. Debentures are classified on the basis of transferability, security offered, redeemability, and conversion. Based on these conditions, the debentures are classified into different kinds. The debentures are classified into different kinds. Transferability. Debentures are classified on the basis of transferability, security offered, redeemability, and conversion. Debentures are classified on the basis of transferability, security offered, redeemability, and conversion. So in that one, the first one is registered debentures. The names and addresses of these debenture holders entered in a register with full details about the number, value, and types of debentures held by each of them. The interest and the principal amount is payable only to those registered persons. Transfer of the ownership of these debentures cannot be valid. Unless the regular instrument of transfer duly stamped and signed by both the owner and the transferee is passed by the directors. The transfer of such debentures is recorded in the register. Here, registered debentures. The names and addresses of these debenture holders entered in a register. With full details about the number, value, and type of debentures held by each of them. The interest and principal amount is payable only to those registered persons. The names and addresses of these debenture holders entered in a register with full details about the number, value, and the principal and interest will be payable to only the registered persons. Transfer of the ownership of these debentures cannot be valid unless the regular instrument of transfer duty stamped, and the transfer of such debentures is recorded in the register. This is the registered debentures. Then another one is bearer debentures. These debentures can be held by any person. The names and addresses of these debenture holders are not registered in the books of the company. These debentures can be transferred by mere delivery. The person possessing these debentures can have claim over the interest and principal. There is no need to pay any stamp duty on its transfer. On its transfer. Here, the difference between the registered debenture and the barrier debenture is the registered debenture, the details of the registered debenture, that is the name of the person, rate of interest, principal, is recorded in a register. Here, in case of bearer debentures, the names and addresses of these debenture holders are not registered in the books of a company, are not recorded or not registered in the books of the company. These debentures can be transferred by mere delivery. These debentures can be transferred by mere delivery. The person possessing these debentures can have claim over the interest and principal. The person possessing these debentures can have claim over the interest and principal. There is no need to pay any stamp duty on its transfer. There is no need to pay any stamp duty on its transfer. Here, the bearer debentures holders are not no need to pay stamp duty. The person who possesses these debentures, the person who possesses this document or this debenture certificate can have claim over the interest and principal. Can have claim over the interest and principal. These debenture holders details are not registered. These debenture holders details are not registered in the books of the company. In the books of the company. Okay. Then next, secured. Secured debentures. Secured debentures will have a charge. Will have a charge any of the assets of the company. The assets of the company are mortgaged against the secured debentures. In case of winding up of the company, these debenture holders can have claim over those assets, and the proceeds of sale of those assets have to be used to repay the principal and interest of these secured debentures. Okay, the secured debentures, these debenture holders will have a charge over any of the assets. These debenture holders will have a charge over any of the assets of a company. Any of the assets of a company. The assets of the company are mortgaged against the secured debentures. The assets of the company are mortgaged. The assets of the company are mortgaged against the secured debentures. In case of winding up of the company, these debenture holders can have claim over those assets, and the proceed of sale of those assets have to be used to repay the principal and interest of these secured debentures. So here we have to observe one point is the secured debenture holders will have a charge over any asset of the company. Will have a charge over any asset of the company. The assets of the company are not mortgaged against the secured debentures. So that is in case of winding up of the company, these debenture holders can have a claim over the assets, the proceeds of sale of the assets. And next, unsecured debentures. These debentures are also known as simple or naked debentures. And these debentures are also known as simple or naked debentures. These debentures are issued by a company without giving any security for repayment of principal or interest. These debentures are also known as simple or naked debentures. These debentures are also known as simple or naked debentures. These debentures are issued by a company without giving any security for repayment of principal or interest. These debentures do not carry any change on the assets of the company. These debenture holders cannot have any right on the assets of the company. So here the name itself is saying unsecured debentures. The name itself is saying unsecured debentures. So unsecured debentures means these debenture holders doesn't have any right. They do not have any charge on the assets of the company. The debentures are issued. These debentures are issued by a company without giving any security for repayment of principal or interest. These debentures are issued by a company without giving any security for repayment of principal or interest. So here the secured debenture holders have a charge over the asset of a company. The unsecured debentures issued without any security. Without any security. These debenture holders cannot have any right on the assets of the company. These debenture holders cannot have any right on the assets of the company. Then next, redeemable debentures. Redeemable debentures. These debentures are repayable before the end of a specific period mentioned in the bond. These debentures are repayable before the end of a specific period mentioned in the bond. Company will have the option to redeem the debentures. These debentures are commonly issued by the companies. Till they are removed, a certain rate of interest will be paid regularly. Redeemable. In case of redeemable debentures, these debentures are repayable before the end of a specific period. These debentures are repayable before the end of a specific period mentioned in the bond. These debentures are repayable before the end of a specific period mentioned in the bond. The company will have the option to redeem this debenture. These debentures are commonly issued by the companies. Till they are redeemed, a certain rate of interest will be paid. The next, irredeemable debentures. Irredeemable debentures. These debentures are called perpetual debentures. These debentures are called perpetual debentures. These are not redeemed during the lifetime of the company. These debentures are not redeemed during the lifetime of the company. They are redeemed at the time of winding up of company. They are redeemed at the time of winding up of the company. The interest due on these debentures must be paid regularly. The interest due on these debentures must be paid regularly. The company has, however, the option of cancelling its liability to the debenture holder at any time by giving due notice to them. At any time by giving due notice to them. These are the irredeemable debentures. Irredeemable debentures. These debentures are called perpetual debentures. These debentures are called perpetual debentures. These are not redeemed during the lifetime of the company. These are not redeemed during the lifetime of the company. They are redeemed at the time of winding up of the company. They are redeemed at the time of winding up of the company. The interest due on these debentures, the interest due on these debentures must be paid regularly. The interest due on these debentures must be paid regularly. The company has, however, the option of cancelling its liability to the debenture holders at any time by giving due notice to them. And then convertible debentures. Then convertible debentures. These debenture holders are given the choice to convert their debentures into equity shares of the company at a specified rate after a certain period. These debenture holders are given the choice to convert these debenture holders are given the choice to convert their debentures into equity shares of the company at a specified rate after certain periods. These debenture holders have the opportunity of becoming shareholders of the company and take part in the management of the company. So here in the case of this convertible debentures, these debentures can be converted into shares. These debentures can be converted into shares. These debentures can be converted into shares, equity shares of the company at a specified rate after certain period. And these debenture holders have the opportunity of becoming shareholders. These debenture holders have the opportunity of becoming shareholders of the company and take part in the management of the company These debenture holders have the opportunity of becoming shareholders of the company and take part in the management of the company. Then the last one, non-convertible debentures. Non-convertible debentures. These debentures are not eligible for conversion as equity shares of the company. These debentures are not eligible for conversion as equity shares of the company. These debentures are not eligible for conversion as equity shares of the company. Here the convertible debenture holders they can convert their debentures into equity shares of the company at a specified rate after certain period. But here, in case of non-convertible debenture holders cannot be converted into equity shares of the company. These are the different kinds of debentures issued by a company to the general public. Depending upon their interest, they can purchase any kind of these debentures. In this class, I have clearly explained what is a debenture and the differences between the debenture and shares, and what are the different kinds of debentures. What is a debenture and differences between shares and debentures, and different kinds of debentures issued by a joint stock company. So this is the end of this chapter. So in this chapter, that is second chapter, capital structure of a joint stock company, we have learnt the capital procurement of a joint stock company by issuing shares and debentures. What is a share and different types of shares, and what is a debenture and different types of debentures. I have explained you very clearly. There are different kinds of preference shares are there, and there are different kinds of debentures are there. In the last class, I have explained different kinds of preference shares, and in this class, I have clearly explained you the different kinds of debentures: registered, convertible, secured, unsecured, and non-convertible, redeemable debentures. This is the end of this class, and this is the end of this chapter. Thank you.